let me see if I can get. And we're still waiting for DA and Laura. Yep, and I know Laura will be here because she wants to go drinking afterwards, is what she told me.
Maybe she started without us.
And are you okay with that? Are you?
Oh, I figured, I'd just chase after you.
You can always have a sarsaparilla. Hey, here you go.
Why would I want a sarsaparilla?
I don't know.
Good Lord.
Just trying to be funny. Didn't work.
I don't know where to go. You guys have to figure that out.
Oh, well, if you can't find a place to drink in Oregon City.
Yeah, I think we'll find a place. We could go to Renee's down the hill,
Okay.
Throw a stone.
Where's that?
just
There's
right
always
down at
houses
the,
right up the
right across from Dutch Brothers down the street.
Little houses right up the road.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Down the bottom of Singer Hill.
Yes, exactly.
I
They're
went
supposed to have really
Scottish
Never,
Highlands.
never been in there.
Yeah.
Right.
supposed to have
Hang on,
really good breakfast.
Oh,
Delicious.
Were they?
I'm a
Okay, now I will attempt to unlock the
non-voting
door
member,
so that
but
our
there I
second
am.
candidate can get in.
At least I'm on there.
So now you're a voting member. Became a voting member. You're in.
Also had
You're
a
in.
bacon wrapped hot dog
Oh, is this
batter
these
fried.
are
Well, that is,
Hopefully.
I've had haggis before,
Larry
Larry
loves
Larry
mine.
but I don't need it.
No.
So, this gentleman's name is Nick, and he's the
Deep
first.
fried.
Now,
hot dog
she
with
says it's
bacon
Larry,
wrap
so I thought he
sounds
said
good
it's
to
Oh,
me.
man, it is good. I'll just call it the brave one.
Yeah.
I read it for a while.
Well, it's kind of amazing. It worked, and I think we are ready to, we can start whenever. Let's see the agenda. You know, if we want to move communications up or whatever, that would be the only thing I could think of.
Yeah.
Are we hiring inside the city or outside the city?
You want to
Us?
pass that around?
What?
Are we hiring, selecting someone from inside the city or outside?
We have,
Because Eileen, she graduated
and then we
high
can,
school in 63.
yeah, jump to like communications or
Okay.
anything
Graduated
else.
High
And so the first one is Larry, and he's
I
out. That's
graduated
who's out
in
there.
59, so
No, Nick is out
Nick is
there,
out
and
there.
he's first.
Okay.
That was my understanding.
All right.
He's here, so.
He's
That's the
here.
only thing
He's
I
Yeah,
here.
and he
but-
knows, I mean, I talked to him.
Yeah.
I said, we'll come get you, so.
Mhm.
he got his master's degree about the same time I did.
All right. Oh, here it is. Agenda.
Can you,
Okay, what is the protocol we have for going through the questions? I know that when I was,
We'll sort of talk about that once we start the
yeah,
meeting.
usually we just
It's optional.
start.
We'll probably
at
just
one
each
end
take
and
a question.
Go to the other end.
but which is the preferred end?
I don't know. You got a preferred question? Hey.
Okay, I promise this is the last time I'll be late.
Call to order the December 13th Library Board meeting. In attendance are Eileen Sheridan, Dan Wright, Jan Wallander, D.A. Hildebrand, Scott Edwards, and Ken Hall. Staff Maureen Cole and Denise Batcher. So everybody has the agenda in front of you. We have primarily interviews for today, but we're going to flip around and do any communications first. So we'll do that first and then talk about our plans for the interviews. Or do you want to talk about plans first?
Let's look at the questions really fast.
Okay.
And there's,
So the questions in front of you, you developed those at the last meeting. In the past, I think we've just each taken one. So we can start with Ken doing number one and just kind of work our way through.
and then maybe for the second candidate, we want to flip.
We'll flip and we'll
with
start
Eileen.
the other way and go just to confuse
that?
us.
Yeah, okay. And then
Yeah.
if Laura, and if
Remember where we
Laura
are.
comes, then we'll be really confused.
Yeah. And so you'll go out,
Yeah.
bring them in, we'll introduce ourselves, and then we'll start for the first candidate. Ken, you can ask the first question, and we'll go from there.
That sounds great. All right, communications from the,
Lost. Double click on that. Okay.
from the Friends. They had their luncheon in November and they canceled their December meeting. So I've got no news from the Friends. The foundation, do we have news from the foundation?
Not really.
They're kind of regrouping because, the building's built. So, what the plan for the foundation is that, as you know, the library is starting their strategic plan, their strategic planning process. And what they're planning on doing is waiting until we kind of get through that and then see what goals and priorities we identify and then follow up with us on those, because then they would be in alignment with the library, which is the whole point. So they're kind of putting anything big on hold until that process wraps up. And in the meantime, the entire amount of money and the money that they have pledged to us is $372,000. They have about $130,000 still.
To go. Yeah.
Yeah, and they've invested that so that it's earning some money, or, parts of it. And, so that then when we identify, and the really great thing about the foundation is their mission statement, their bylaws are very, very broad, so it doesn't have to just be like what we would term capital improvements. They could help us really with anything that we identify as a priority. And so once the library goes through the process, the strategic planning process, and identifies those, then we'll get back with them, and then they can kind of choose from what they think is the best fit of those priorities to support us. So that's kind of what's going on there.
The neighborhood sign committee?
Yeah, there, we might have a sign in place early next year, because we've approved the preliminary drawings and how thick the wood's gonna be and what kind of paint goes in the holes and all of that. And so we've actually moved ahead quite spectacularly on that, so.
Well done.
But I just sat there and went, yay, for you guys.
Yeah,
But-
we actually came to a nice compromise over
Yeah.
what it's gonna say and all that rigmarole, so it's fine. It's absolutely fine.
Yep.
Yes, I know. So miracles do happen. LDAC, Library District Advisory Committee, that's the other one that
Yeah.
we,
We had a joint meeting with the county board last week only, was it?
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, good time goes. But anyhow, it seems to be copacetic there that the county is gonna build 2 libraries, one for the Oak Grove area and one for Gladstone, and then the county is going to administer both of those libraries, at least for the foreseeable future. But Gladstone has to come up with a bond issue.
So what's going on is Gladstone previously voted that any capital improvement projects over $100,000 had to be approved by the voters. So they have to rescind that, and they have to agree to give the library $200,000 annually from the general fund, Gladstone General Fund. If that's all approved, then the county will run the Gladstone Library as a branch, and they will build about a 5,000 square foot branch. And it will be administered by the Oak Lodge Library, which will be about, I think, 19,000 square feet. There's many steps to go in this, but the county has to change the master order, which says that you cannot use district money on capital improvements, which we have completely ignored and done it that way, because that was the only way our building was gonna get built. So we just, saved money and put it in reserve. And then right now, about 1/4 of the money we get from the district goes towards paying off the bonds. There are a lot of other libraries that also use their district funds for capital improvements. However, once the county decided that that's what it wanted to do in Oak Lodge and Gladstone, it decided that it needed to do it legally. And so therefore, they had to change the master order, which is causing all kinds of ruckus.
There's that.
Yeah, because there are those libraries that really don't want it changed because everything's fine. And it kind of gives the library directors who are not getting money taken to go towards capital kind of like a buffer with their city managers that says, you really want to think about this. This is not what the master order says you're supposed to be doing with this money. So, so anyway, that's getting changed whether we like it or not.
Yep.
And that's going to happen. So that kind of makes us a little bit more legal, although it's kind of a soft thing. But they're saying that the reason it's even in there that way, just for operations and not operations and capital, is because the whole existence of the Estacada Library District, which existed before this one, right? And that was for that was a capital project, and you couldn't have two capital service districts doing the same thing at the same time and overlapping each other, right? So that's why it was there. That's gone away. That's paid off. It's done. So now it could be towards both. Some citizens really disagree with that, because there really is not enough money to do both, not sustainably. And so, but if you want to start talking sustainability, we've got all kinds of worries down the road, PERS, et cetera, just like all of us do, So I would say in 10 years at the very least, we probably should have like a higher per 1,000 rate. It's only 39 cents per 1,000. It's not enough money, but to get more, I think you have to actually start over. You don't just like go back, ask for more. You have to, I think, start over. So that is a conversation for way down the road. But anyway, so this stuff is happening in the meantime. They've asked for feedback from the directors. The directors don't agree, but we will get something to them. I get to be chair of the directors group this year, as you know, so fun. So that's happening.
We're having so much fun, aren't we?
We're having so much fun. Yeah, they're kind of stressful meetings. That LDAC thing in particular, when we meet they're awful. They're awful.
This is a good meeting, though.
This is a great meeting.
Okay.
All right, so
Any other communication?
Oh, I have a small,
Okay.
short announcement. I'm intending to leave the board because I feel like my mission's done here. And so it's going to create an empty spot for you to fill. And you don't have enough applicants at this point, so I'm going to try to encourage a particular person from Beaver Creek again to apply. But she's not in a great position at the moment, but I'm hoping that it might give her something interesting to focus on, so that would be Martha.
Okay.
So
So do you have so this is a surprise?
that's all. I know it's a surprise, but I'm really, I think I've got a new project to focus on, although my wife hasn't fully approved it yet. And you may be the first to hear about it on the 28th. We'll
cool.
see.
Awesome.
So anyway, I think I've done what I really came to do, and it's really time for me to let this group work more effectively on the strategic plan, especially that, while I focus on the Beaver Creek branch.
Not going away totally.
No.
So are you saying, is this your last meeting?
Yes,
Next?
I'd like to make this my last meeting. Even if you have a vacancy, I don't think what's coming up in the next few days or next few meetings is going to make too much difference, so.
Can we decline? Not accept the resignation?
I
Is
guess
that
you
an option?
Yeah, we could say that, but then when he doesn't show next month, I think we'll know what's going on. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to put in the minutes that we appreciate your work, DA. That's-
Well, thank you.
It was
It was a lot of
impressive.
fun.
It was impressive to hear you report back from all this stuff, and you knew what was going on. That's the most impressive thing. That's all.
Well, I just wanted to be sure we got the best library we could
I
get.
think you did that.
And,
We did.
And I hope we did, so,
So I, as one, thank you for that.
thanks.
Yeah,
Okay.
I second that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
As
for your
evidenced
service.
by, if people haven't seen the article that was in the local paper a couple weeks ago about the 3 now design honors that the library has gotten, very impressive, just racking up the awards
That's good.
everywhere. Congratulations.
you.
Congratulations to all.
Done
And I
good.
think we should also acknowledge that this is Laura's and Eileen's last meetings also, so 4 years of service or more. 8.
Oh,
Wow, that's a long.
Yeah, I knew
You've been
knew
through-
Laura before she had 2 children.
I was hugely pregnant.
Yes.
when I started.
Yes.
So,
It was awesome.
so 8 years, that's how I mark it. Charles is gonna be 8 in January, so.
Wow, thank you both.
Yeah, thank
Yeah.
you so
For,
much. Yeah.
yes, been through all of the.
So all of a sudden, we're like cut in half. Yeah,
Good, fresh blood.
Okay,
fresh blood, I guess. Yeah. I
That's
kind of
what-
so speaking
Kinda
of
like
fresh
the old
blood, one of
blood.
them is waiting outside. So the plan is, Laurie, so the plan is, we're gonna start with, Ken will ask the
Okay.
first question, we're just gonna go that
Usual.
way.
Okay,
And for
great.
the second candidate, we're gonna start with you, go
Okay.
the other way.
Sure.
The interviews will be, taped. And then
Video
when we
recorded?
finish it, recorded, for the official recording, and then when we finish the interviews, then we will stop recording for our discussion. So, all right. I'll
I
let
will
you go
go
get
get
that.
And this guy's going, right? He's
Apparently
drawn.
he took, apparently he threw his,
You're.
so we just have, Larry and Nick. So the first one is Nick, I believe.
And they're in the city, these are both in the city. We brought that up to Mo, she said she's got answers for all of these things.
Okay, so we're not, okay, I was confused about that one, their resumes.
Yeah, I was, me too, I was kind of, but she said she's got it.
If he ever comes to these meetings.
Yeah,
You want to just sit down right here? Let me make sure that the microphone is, looks like on to me. There you go.
Thank you.
Hi, welcome, welcome. I think we'll have the board introduce themselves, and then we do have a series of questions to ask you. So I'm Jan Mullender, I'm currently the chair of the board.
Don Wright, I've been 7 years at this chair, or that one.
Eileen Sheridan, this will be my last meeting after 4 years.
Laura Ingham, and I'm last meeting after 8.
I'm Ken Hall. This is my first year, so it seems very recently I was sitting where you.
Scott Edwards, Vice Chair.
I'm DA Hildebrand, and I've been around a while, but this is also my last meeting. So, anyway, you're replacing some good hands.
Sounds like a lot
Which
of
we just
experience.
learned that this was his last, he just resigned, so he was supposed to try, so.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So Ken is gonna ask the first question.
Okay.
So,
Okay, I have to put on my glasses. Why do you want to be on this board?
That's a great question. Actually, I've always been very interested in the library, particularly the Oregon City Library. And I've been involved in the background in giving advice. To start, I'm visually impaired. And I always describe it, I'm visually impaired to the point that I can't drive. So that kind of gives you a handle on it. I'm actually, my corrected vision is 20/100. So I do a lot with audiobooks. That's my world of the library. And so I'm very interested in how that's used and how we take that forward, and along with other things from a disability standpoint. I mean, that's definitely part of my interest. But I'm interested in general too, in terms of ongoing learning and that type of thing.
What special skills or strengths do you bring to the board?
I guess if I look at it from my business experience, it's more, as you probably can see, I've worked in healthcare information technology for about 30 plus years. And so I'm not a hands-on technical person, but I have a good understanding of technology. I'm also, I have a bachelor's and master's in industrial engineering, so I'm actually more of a process engineer. And so I'm pretty much focused that way in terms of, I tend to look at things in terms of what we can do to, improve things at different levels. So that's part of it. And also I've ran large departments and done budgets and done strategic planning, tactical planning, and pretty much everything you can go along those lines. So I feel like I have a lot to offer from that standpoint, just with my experience.
Okay, well, the library's new edition is open, and so my question is, what services should the library be offering to best serve our service area? And I want to qualify that our service area is a split about 50-50 between the city of Oregon City and the surrounding area, predominantly to the south, but some like Holcomb and that area. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think I know there's a lot going on. I really admire the programs that, that are currently set up and are expanding in terms of just with the new facility and what's possible versus what was possible before. I'm very interested in the makerspace concept or also the creative space kind of concept, and I really think that that would have a lot to offer to the community. I know that it's hard to do the outreach to some of the further away communities. I mean, that when we're talking bricks and mortar in terms of a facility, that implies that you're going to have to probably come here or use that as a resource to try to branch out and get other people involved. But that would probably be one of my main things. I talked with Mo about it recently because I know that there's still a lot of interest in doing something in that arena and getting it really off and going. So. Great.
Thank you. So my question is, so what do you see as the role of the library within a community?
That's a really good question. I mean, I think in general, well, I could say the mission statement, but which I mean, it's a well-written mission statement. I really like that. I think it really does explain what a library should be for the community. But I also, I mean, I just think it's a core meeting place. It's a place to bring people together, and also for people to have access to information and to be able to grow beyond where they are now. Just all the different programs that are being offered within the library. But I recently read something that I found really interesting. It was puts a perspective on it, and that is that when you think community, sort of the way it was described in this article was that the first level is sort of family and friends, where that's like your community of friends. And then the next level that it described was around work. And so that was looked at as another level, particularly if you're working, that would be, you have a lot of engagement there in terms of from a community standpoint. And then the next level are things like churches, the library, other organizations, other social organizations, other business organizations at that level. And so when I think about it, you know, it's if you start kind of going down through that tier, you know, as people's lives change, their community changes. And, you know, a big one is like work, or somebody who may not really have family in the area. Then those other things become even more important to them, like their church or the library, other things that will, you know, give them an opportunity to really be in a social environment. So.
Interesting, thanks.
My turn. Are you willing to represent the library board at public meetings such as neighborhood association meetings, other advisory group meetings, city council meetings, things like that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I'm very active in the community in all different ways. I mean, really at all the things that you've mentioned, not being on the commissions, but actively attending meetings and participating when I have an opportunity to do it. I've been very active in my neighborhood. I'm actually on the board of the Oregon City Business Alliance, and you probably, again, they're all in the information that I've provided. So, and so, yeah, I mean, I'm definitely willing and would be interested in doing it.
Thank you.
You may have already touched a little bit on this, but are there special areas of the library collection which you particularly like to use?
Yeah, that question, I mean, I look at it, I'm not exactly sure what that question means. So how would you give me a better idea about what that means?
Within the library's collection of material, are there special areas which you would particularly use more? I mean, you had mentioned audiobooks, but
Oh, definitely.
you know,
Yeah.
I mean, is there any other?
Well, I mean, from the book standpoint, I do use audiobooks, and I use a range of different books, some not directly associated with the library, and you know, and some that are. And in terms of what I listen to is really pretty much a variety of different books. I joined a book club about a year ago. I was given my disability, I listened to a lot of books, and I was like in a rut. It was really suspense fiction. I was like, and I had enough authors that I could pretty much keep a book going all the time, just because they were putting out a lot of books. And then I joined the book club, and it was one of the best things I've done over the last year or two in terms of expanding my view of books and knowledge and those kind of things. So that's really given me a lot more of a general view of literature and books and that type of thing. So.
Okay. Thank you.
The city's population is now spread to the south of the library, and we serve people outside the city limits. Should we consider a branch facility or some other kind of service for residents of that area?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a challenging question. Challenging topic too. I guess if I look at it, my first question would be, are we working within the same budget? That would pretty much dictate. I mean, that would be a first cutting point in terms of what would be possible. Mm-hmm. But I do agree that one obvious thing is be able to deliver and pick up books, those types of things. I think it's more challenging if you wanted to expand programs. I mean, one idea would be to link in more with schools and possibly, join up with them in terms of what they might be willing to work on and offer to the community. I mean, I think it becomes challenging if, just like I said, from a budget standpoint, as you, if you want to add facilities or you want to add facilities imply more people. So I assume that there's not, you're probably doing everything that you can with the budget that you have right now. So I think it's definitely a challenging question. And I mean, I look at it even in terms of Oregon City, and it's how do we get more people to participate in all the programs that are being offered? And there's so much value there that it's just, to me, it's just frustrating that more people aren't involved.
Thank you.
Did you have any thoughts on how to get more people involved?
Well, first of all, it's awareness, which is a big thing, and I know that we have opportunities to let people know about things, but it's knowing, so awareness is huge, so that implies messaging. I mean, I know there's Facebook, which I saw that you're almost up to 2,000 participants in that. I mean, that's really good. There's also obviously the e-newsletter, which I personally like e-newsletters because it's pushed out to you. And if you have, I mean, websites are a great place to go for information, but they're quasi-static in a sense, and so it's really hard to. I'm not going to just go out and search a bunch of websites to see if there's new information out there. So I like the e-newsletter and getting that. But then you have to get people to sign up for it to be aware. And I think also it's kind of trying to help frame that message in terms of how a particular program might help them. I mean, I think like the First Friday movies. I mean, I like that program because it's more than just going to the movie. There's usually a discussion after the movie, and I think that I don't know if everyone really totally understands the value in that, as opposed to just going to the movie, and so I think it's just a constant effort to first of all make people aware. I mean, that's just level one, and then to help them understand how the value in that particular program and how it can help them.
Great, thank you.
The library board normally meets monthly on the second Wednesday at 5 o'clock. The meetings go approximately from 6 to 6:30. Attendance in meeting is very important. Are you available to attend these meetings on a regular basis?
Yes, definitely.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, it's sort of a yes or no question.
Yeah, a little bit.
Leave the easy one for last.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions of us?
Well, I went through, all the information on the website in terms of the position description, and I went through a strategic plan, and I know that that's being updated. So, I mean, I think that's a great opportunity to be involved in that. I would really enjoy being involved in that and being able to look at where things are, help look at where the direction is for the next 5 years. So I think that was really helpful to look at it because it was also to go back and sort of see what progress has been made in that 5-year period, which there's been a lot accomplished, obviously. So I'm not sure if I have any specific questions, but I mean, I've actually listened to your meetings, so I kind of know I know what happens here.
And you still want to be here.
Well, I have to admit, I have not been on any city commissions or boards or any of that. And part of it is just from the standpoint of where I am in terms of my disability. And I wanted to be on the library board. I thought there would be a lot of applicants. I thought it would be very competitive, and I wasn't even sure if I would, I thought it would be just a difficulty from that standpoint. But I've always been interested in the library board, and I just feel like there's so many opportunities to really be out there and getting people involved. I mean, I read a lot. I mean, this is my book. I listen, so it's like I don't have to read it on this small thing. But right now I have like 31 books on here. So, And so like I said, the book club has really opened my, my perspective on things. And I challenge myself every day to look at I look at my opinions and beliefs, and as I read and learn things in my life, I'm always trying to look at what that means to me, and do I need to tweak my opinions and beliefs? And so I think ongoing, education, exposure, there's a variety of ways of getting it, but the library can be a big way to get it. So.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else have any other questions? Well, maybe you can help us make this be a competitive position.
Yeah, it should be that.
Great. Well, thank you. That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll deliberate after the interview the other person, and then I'll get back to you.
Right.
That's part I forgot to say. Process.
So she's got us 2 industrial engineers.
No, I think the other guy is
He's a librarian.
The other guy's a
Incredible
librarian.
resume.
He went
Yeah.
to school in industrial engineering first.
There.
Yeah.
Very much so.
Yeah, there's the hot
We've got
seat.
some mean inquisitioners here too.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Welcome, Larry. So I'll have everybody introduce themselves. I'm Jan Wallander. I'm currently the chair of the board.
Don Wright?
Eileen Sheridan.
Laura Ingham.
I'm D.A. Hildebrand.
Scott Edwards, Vice Chair.
Ken Hall.
That's right. We have our names in
all
front of us,
right.
and really to help us,
Yeah, it really helps a lot, doesn't it?
That's good because I can't remember names.
Yeah,
We're sitting in the right place.
that's right. Assuming we sat behind our names, which is always the question.
Here we go.
So we have several questions for you, and we're gonna start this time with Laura and just kind of go ask them one by one, and then we'll have time for you at the end.
Canned questions.
Yeah.
Ask away.
Why do you want to be on this board?
I think, as I said in my application, I've been working with libraries for 60 years now, and it's something I'd like to continue. I feel very strongly about the usefulness and the need for libraries in a community. So what expertise I have would be at your service.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Larry, let's see. What special skills or strengths do you bring to the board, or you would be bringing?
Well, I think I have a couple that would be useful. One would be, as I say, my experience with libraries. I once appeared on the cover of Library Journal because I was picketing the library. That was back in 1962. I have a long experience with all types of libraries. Second, I'm used to working with a structure, used to working with the community. We're still used to working with librarians. I have an expertise in helping people get along. I think that's the two things that I primarily did for the last 10 years that I was, before I retired, was I raised money and I helped people get along. I was in charge of closing of the library school when I was at the University of Hawaii. We moved from being a school to a program within the computer science department. And I was negotiating there with both the faculty of the library and with potential people to take us over. So I have some experience in that. And then I also have an understanding of how fundraising takes place and of potential grantors. So those are probably the biggest skills I bring.
You've seen our new edition.
I have.
You think great. What services should we be offering now to our service area, which includes not just Oregon City, but a larger area outside the city limits, going down to Redland and out to Beaver Creek, I think, and something like that. So there's lots of people to serve.
Well, it's very difficult to say what services, additional services you should be offered.
Yeah.
Because I don't have the intimate knowledge of the clientele.
Well, let me just turn it around. If you were in charge and this is your world, what kind of services would you provide for anybody that's out there?
In addition to the services which you
No,
now
not
provide.
necessarily. Don't even worry about
Because
those.
you're providing the location for meetings, you're providing the necessary materials, you're providing the reference service, you're providing the technology necessary. You're doing those things that public libraries typically do today. I think that the challenge would be to find out what those people who aren't now, for some reason or another, using the library need that you're not offering. So in answer to your question, and it's kind of a sideway answer,
That's right.
is I would try to find out what services are useful. And then if I were in charge, now I'm not, and if I were on the board, I understand that the library staff would be in charge, but
Yeah.
I think I would try to continue the outreach service. That's kind of where my experience as a public library was, in that I was a public librarian in a rural community, even smaller than Oregon City. We used to refer to it as darkest Appalachia. And we had, at the beginning, very small use of the library. What we discovered was there were things that we could do to bring people in who were not normally habitual users of the library. Now, you do one thing I noticed, you have the watt meters to lend out. And that's the sort of thing I think that is a outside the box kind of concept. We loaned, for example, torque wrenches because the community that I was in was a coal mining community and people had trucks. They couldn't afford the necessary tools to overhaul engines. We loaned them that. We loaned stuffed animals. We loaned all sorts of things. And that's just I wouldn't say I would do necessarily those things, but I found out what need to be done and then get it done.
Thank you.
Thank you. So my question is, so what is the role of the library within a community?
Oh, that's a tough one, because the role of the library, frankly, can be virtually anything that the library staff, the board, and the community, and the funding agency, or the supervisory agency feels is necessary. The library is, in my opinion, from my experience, the only agency in a community that serves everyone. There are very important services in the community, the fire department, the police, and so on. But the library is the one that has the potential of working with virtually every group in the community. So the role can be as broad and narrow as the library feels is necessary or useful. I mean, the traditional answer is to provide information and recreation and continuing education to the community. That's kind of the canned response. But the deeper thing is you do what's necessary, what's useful for the community.
This is just a procedural question. Are you willing to represent the library board at public meetings such as neighborhood association meetings, other advisory group meetings, city commission meetings, that kind of thing?
Sure, I have experience in doing that.
Good.
Doing that both from a library standpoint and at the university.
Great.
Are there special areas of the library collection which you particularly like to use?
That I particularly like to use myself? Well, I have to say, and I'll apologize already ahead for this, I haven't had a lot of luck finding those things I need in the library.
Our collections are very small right now.
My needs are sort of niche-oriented. I think the areas that I will most commonly use would be, frankly, the interlibrary loan facilities. I'm very interested in some British library history. And in fact, I just went into the library 2 or 3 days ago and asked, do you have access to the British Newspaper Archives database? And of course, the answer was no. I didn't think that our library would, but I had kind of hoped that as part of a consortium that it may have been available. It wasn't, and I didn't surprise me, but that's, where my interest primarily is.
Thank you. The city's population is now spread to the south of the library. We now serve people outside of the city limits. Should we consider a branch facility or some kind of service for residents in those outlying areas?
One of the things that I learned just in preparing for this interview was how big Clackamas County is. It's humongous. And considering the density of population, having, I think, this is just right off the top of my head, so if I were going to make a decision about this, I would investigate much further. But it looks as though, to my mind, having branches would not be effective, just because of the number of communities are involved. Other solutions, mobile libraries, cooperation with other units in the community where, for example, technology might be available. Those sorts of things might be considered. But once again, it's a very specific question that I think would require a lot of investigation.
Well, just as a side, there are many communities up and down the main core of this county have their own libraries.
I did see the dots on the map, yeah.
Okay, so it's important to know that. Yeah. Thank you.
And our last question is, the library board normally meets monthly on the second Wednesday from 5 to approximately 6 to 6:30. Attendance at the meeting is very important, and just, are you able to attend these meetings on a regular basis?
One of the joys of being retired is, yes, I would be able to meet anytime and available during the day anytime. So I think I as I mentioned in my application, up until just the beginning of this year, I was very heavily involved with my son's problems because he had a stroke, and I was working hours with him. Now, frankly, he's 90% recovered, and I have a certain amount of boredom. I'd be eager to do anything you'd wish.
That's great that you are bored. That's
It's
a
right.
wonderful reason for being bored. That's even improved.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
Well, and excuse me, I'm a little hoarse right now. I knew that question was going to come up. And the answer, frankly, is only. I'd like to get a feel, and I know that this is difficult to come out in an open meeting. I'd like to get a feel for how well the library board, the library staff, the county offices, how well you get along. Do you work together well now? Or do you see a need for improvement in that direction?
Well, I think the library and the library support groups, all of them, we have Friends, we have Foundation, we have Library Board, we get along great. I mean, this community has amazing support for the library, and going through the fundraising and the building project just demonstrated to me how strongly this community loves our library. And I feel like that I've had good relationships with all the groups.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's a lot of, between those three groups, the library, the board, the Friends of the Library Foundation, a lot of synergy, a lot of communication, kind of cross-working together, supporting one another.
Also from the city commission.
Yeah, and then the way we're structured is a little bit complicated in that we're a city department, and so my boss is the city manager. But yet we're funded almost entirely through the library district, which is a county service district. And so ultimately, the Board of County Commissioners are in charge of that funding. So Dawn and I sit on the Library District Advisory Committee as well, which is the group that kind of just makes sure that all that money is going into the right pot. And that relationship is, and then there's one other player, and the county, out of its general fund, provides support for a working unit, a department that we call Network, and they provide all the centralized services to the libraries throughout the entire consortium. And they're a key player. They provide the courier, the software, all that stuff. And they're under the leadership of Greg Williams, who walks on water as far as I'm concerned. He is fabulous. So all of those relationships, I think, are, as I would say, as strong as they've been, for sure.
I agree.
Yeah. And
I think it's evidenced by the implementation this year of the RFID
Yeah.
and the
Which
materials
excites
handler,
me, I
which
have
is,
to say.
yeah,
so exciting.
I don't
yeah.
have any experience with RFID.
it's magic.
It's magic.
And so that was a countywide, an agreement amongst all the libraries and to come together. So
Yeah,
that's
that's a really good demonstration of the Network office and how they came together to support everybody to make this happen. They kind of forced it on the libraries that didn't want to do it. They said, we're not going to support barcodes and RFID tags. That's all there is to it. And so people had to get on the bandwagon, but they also helped us pay for certain things, which really softened the blow quite a bit.
Well, I appreciate the effort that went into that. I've done a number of retrospective conversion projects, and going through every item in the library to move from barcode to RFID or
She was the person in charge of it at the Oregon
She was
City
in
Library right
charge
there.
of me while I was
Yeah.
putting stickers in.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was a lot of support of people helping, I think, who
Yeah.
wanted to make that happen. So I
Yeah.
think that was,
I've only been on the board for a year. I've never heard anybody shout.
that's important.
No, no, I think this is one of the best boards you can be on. I'm familiar with some of the other boards in the city, and, I would never, ever in my life, since I'm married to an urban planner, get on a planning commission, for instance. This is like, you do not want to be on a board where you're telling people what they can or cannot do with their property. But this is like, we're dealing with like great things here.
Yeah.
And we all believe in the mission so strongly that it is just always, even when it's hard topics, always a positive, I think. And I think the relationships are very strong.
Looked at your mission statement. Also, I noticed that your strategic plan runs out this year.
We've started that process.
Started that process. Oh, isn't that wonderful? Those are exciting. One of the backgrounds I have is experience in assessment evaluation sort of activities. So if my expertise could be of use there at all.
We could use that, yeah.
I actually, when I first came to town, came down to the library to ask whether there were any librarians who graduated from the University of Hawaii, and I found out there are not.
No, there might be some in town that we could find out for you.
Well, I want to make
Portland.
touch with, I know there are people in Portland, somewhere
okay.
in the Portland area,
Yeah.
because we got a lot of people from the Northwest come out to Hawaii for some reason, starting in the winter semester. for
Yeah,
some
it's a
reason.
strange thing, yeah.
I prefer the weather here, I have to say. It's
To Hawaii?
to Hawaii, definitely. We said
I had to add that.
you have seasons. We don't have seasons in Hawaii. We didn't have seasons. And I don't think they change, unless there was a hurricane coming, which we called typhoons. The weather forecast was canned and every day was the same, you know. This is much more pleasant, really, much more exciting.
Definitely changes a lot more, than- yeah.
Now, the only other question I have is whether you've explored, and my background for the past 15 years before I retired was in university level. And we had different funding sources, I know, than public libraries do. I don't know the extent to which you've explored the possibility of external grants. I don't know how much those are, you know, whether they're available. I would say, however, that when I was working as provost, I raised somewhere between $25 and $30 million for the university in those 15 years. But that was somewhat easier because, I'm sure, believe me, because I've been a public librarian and I know the funding isn't the same. But I guess the simplest thing to say, I'm a damn good grant writer.
Excellent, noted. We have not explored that nearly enough. We did do some of that when we did the capital campaign, so, but.
I thought that perhaps with the extent of your construction, that, you know, you had bottomed out the available funds or something.
I think there's still money out there, but yeah, there's not a lot in the public
There's not a lot.
arena. Yeah.
And once again, that's where tailoring the services of the library, I usually figure that in anything that you plan, you can bring it down to a Venn diagram where you have what you want to do and what the community wants to do and what the funding agency wants to do. And anytime you can get in the center of those three circles, that you pretty well have it made. And my experience with public librarians especially, I have to say, is that I have to say I was on the grant awarding side of the state of Pennsylvania at one point, and I saw the grant applications that came into the state. And we would put out a request for proposals that would say, we want to serve rural populations. And we would get proposals in from people who wanted to serve urban populations. And you can't grant money that way. So one of the secrets of finding funds is finding out exactly what the point structure is for getting the grant, and then being sure that what you want to do fits into the structure of what the funding agency wants to do. And sometimes it isn't the thing that you want to do most. But if it's something that you want to do, I don't believe in applying for money just because the money's there. But if it's something you want to do, but it's not the central thing, there's no use asking for money for the central thing if what they want to give you money for is some secondary thing. Get the money where you can.
Well, thank you. I think our plan is, we had a couple applicants today. We'll have some discussion and then Mo will get back to you.
I want to say, I understand that having been on boards, the decision has to be based on, you know, what you need on the board. So I'll be happy with any decision you make.
And then the official
you.
appointments from the city manager, city
Oh,
council,
the mayor.
Yeah.
The mayor's the ultimate decider on this
Yeah,
one.
so,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so then I think we are going to close the meeting. Right? Meeting is adjourned at 6:02.